Could you, Sally, talk up as loud as you can? It kind of
Yes.
comes from behind us, and unfortunately, my ears are plugged up from flying home from Amsterdam yesterday. So that'd be
yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, so if you want to get started, we can start the meeting because you do have a quorum.
Okay. Do you want to do the roll call?
So roll call. So Eisner,
Here.
he is absent. Kubal,
Here.
Merrill,
Here.
Robertson, Robinson,
Here.
and Mayor DeGolia is here.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and ask for public comments if there
Right.
are any. Are there any public comments?
Nobody, no public.
No public comments. So the minutes, there are no minutes this month. So you will be getting a couple sets of minutes to review at the next meeting. Any questions?
Nope.
The only one is whether Cassidy's there.
Cassidy is here now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi there, how are you?
Hi, Cassidy. Welcome.
Thank you.
So at a past meeting, the committee asked for Cassidy to return. At the last meeting, you asked her to return with a report on how things are going. So Cassidy can speak on that, and if you have any questions for her, she's available to answer any.
Great, well, hi everyone. Thank you for having me. I don't have too much updates. I mean, things have been going really well at the park. Definitely starting to get a bit busier, which is awesome to see. Events are picking up for, well, they picked up through September and October. So we have quite a few events. I believe it's 10 confirmed for facility rentals with catering for the remainder of the year. But I do anticipate quite a bit of last minute bookings through the holiday season. I think this comes from just seeing what happened last year and just kind of judging how comfortable people are with gathering through the holiday season. A few things that we've been working on just with the reservations. We've been trying to be very mindful of noise when booking the reservations. I know it's been kind of a strange transition getting out of COVID and having amplified music and stuff like that. So definitely trying to be very mindful of that. Also, personally, I'm working on building like a preferred vendor list. So getting in touch with some of the photographers and DJs and rentals and lighting and all of that. So we have kind of a narrowed down group of vendors that we're working closely with. So I think that'll be helpful for clients moving forward. Let's see, the new fees have been a lot easier on my end. I think they're a lot easier for clients to read and understand, and it's been beneficial through our application processes. I think it just kind of reduces that back and forth with the inquiries and the pricing questions. So definitely helping alleviate some of the confusion with potential clients and new clients in that way as well. Let's see. A few things on our end, our catering staff has been maintaining and cleaning, trying to keep updated inventory lists. We've been doing deep cleaning of the facilities at least monthly, just general reorganization, washing windows and cobwebs and kind of overall cleanliness of the buildings. A few things that I've noticed just personally from spending time there in the office, our catering team does clean after each event, but I have noticed that there's been like some garbage and dirt and stuff left over, especially in the main house in between events. And also that the pavilion restrooms have been left unlocked a few times. So that does lead to additional cleaning on our end. So if we could just be mindful if, other groups are gathering in there, other classes, or if the landscaping team is in there, if we could just be mindful of any of the dirt that's tracked in and making sure that we lock up the doors after we use the buildings, that would be really helpful from us. And then advertising has been going well. We're still on Tie the Knot and Wedding Wire. That's producing a lot of really good leads on our end. I think it's bringing a lot of recognition to the park. Just from my list on between Tie the Knot and Wedding Wire, we've had just over 400 leads since March. I know a handful of those have gone through, but a lot of them are preliminary searches, just like for 2023 and 2024 wedding season. So I think that's giving really good exposure to the park. And I think that's been going well in terms of advertising. Also, just kind of looking ahead, with any of the Athertonian or Atherton online, any of that social media, I'd love to kind of get in touch with that and be able to really promote the park that way as well. But yeah.
Cassidy, it's Walt Robinson. Could I ask you a question about the facilities? We just walked through the facilities before this meeting. And I wondered if you use the ovens, say, in any facility.
Yes. So frequently we'll use the ovens in either the main house or the pavilion. In the carriage house, transparently, they're pretty dated. So it is easier for us to bring in a mobile oven when we're using the carriage house for facility rentals.
But how about we just looked at the oven in the pavilion, and apparently there were some issues. Do you use that one?
We have. And so with the oven in the pavilion, I believe it's something with the way that it ignites. That's been a little bit tricky for our culinary team. But we have been able to use it in the past. I think it's just maybe not operating with the ease of getting it started and going. But once it's lit, it does stay lit.
And is there anything else about the facilities you'd like to talk about, such as the rug in the main house?
Yes. So we did get the carpets cleaned. I believe it was in February. And they looked better. But unfortunately, I mean, because I've done spot treatments and everything on those drugs, trying to get some of those old stains out. But they're really in there. The carpeting in the pavilion as well. Sometimes it's hard and it might deter potential clients just because it is dated. The carpeting in the main house it definitely needs some attention.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else about the facilities that you might suggest? For instance, how are the restrooms accepted in the pavilion?
Pavilion restrooms are not, I haven't had any issues with those. The men's room of the main house does have some staining in the sink. I think it's probably just like a rust stain or something like that. That's just it just doesn't look very nice. So I've tried to, clean that, but it's really stained in there. And then restrooms in the carriage house, those have had some plumbing issues in the past that MCE has helped me with, but definitely could use some upgrades on that as well.
How often do you actually have an event in the carriage house?
Not as frequently as the other facilities, I will say. And especially if clients are renting the carriage house to get the North Meadow. We've had 2 events in the last few months here that have brought in portable restrooms for those, just because it is a slight walk away and it makes it easier on the guest. But for the smaller events that are booking the carriage house, they will be used, but they're just very outdated. So it does make it hard.
And lastly, could you tell me, in the carriage house, there was an event that's on the financial report where somebody actually paid you almost $33,000. Just tell us, what kind of event was that? What is this There with Care?
Yeah, so this one is a local nonprofit. They're based in Redwood City. And the client actually told me that she's been doing events there for the last, I think she said it was almost 10 years that they've been utilizing the North Meadow for their fundraiser. And so what it is it's it was a multi-day setup for the event that happened on last Friday. And it was a pretty large fundraiser that helped contribute to their nonprofit.
And they were at least satisfied enough to do it in the carriage house, right?
Yes, and the reason being is they were utilizing the North Meadow.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Question, if we are looking at possibly redoing the rugs, do you, Cassie, would you feel that the clients would prefer carpeting or hardwood?
I would say hardwood. I think I mean, it's easier to keep clean, absolutely. But the carpeting, I think, just doesn't look as nice. It gives a much more, I think it gives a nicer feel when you're walking into hardwood.
That's why I was.
Yeah, there's also a lot of products that are now made,
Yeah,
the
not real
recycled wood.
wood, yeah.
And they are they've improved enormously and they are, they last really well and they're moppable. I mean, everything, everything, yeah.
Yeah,
and
and so
You
that's
just
what
have to pick how thick they are and
Yeah.
they're a much better long-term
Might be a
solution. No
better-
buckling, no
exactly.
moisture, no nothing. They're pretty impenetrable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There was a comment made about the water, the well water that runs the bathrooms out and the kids playground and also the, what do you call it, the clay court? How often, do you have any idea how often that has been affected at all? Or is that anything anybody's ever said to you, or is that a Sally question?
I do know we had some issues with some water outside of the pavilion on the event garden side, where that new tree was just put in. But I don't think that, I mean, I think that was resolved fairly quickly with MCE. So I'm not certain that that was something that I ran into an issue with.
Does anybody have any questions? And I just wanted to note that Julie joined us on Zoom and Michael Jessup is here for the pickleball discussion later.
Hi, everybody. My only other question for Cassidy, the event that you were just talking about, There for Care, I think is the name of it. So they've done that annual event before at Holbrook Palmer, and did they pay around the same amount last time?
I did work with Terry on trying to pull up previous contracts with them. To be transparent, I don't know exactly how much they paid in the past. Obviously, the costs have increased. I think they said the last time they gathered there was in 2018 or 19, if I remember correctly. So they did say that, price had increased a bit since the last time they were there. Transparently, I didn't see the previous contracts, so I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, the highest facility fee was 4,780. And then the catering fee, the 39,032 is a catering fee and we got 10% of that.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
The only question I have is if we were going to replace, and I don't know that we would need to replace it, but if we were going to replace the gas stove and oven in the pavilion, would it work from your perspective to put in an induction stove?
I would have to confirm with my culinary team. To be honest, I'm not, I don't know that answer transparently. I'm sorry.
Why not? That's no problem. Why don't you do that and let us
Okay.
know?
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I think we can move on.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cassidy.
Thank you.
Much.
Thank you.
The next item is the event garden, the circulation project update. So we do have the project manager, Rick Navarro, here. So he can give you an update and you can ask him any questions. Rick, do you have anything you want me to share for this?
No, not this time. I think
we're still at the 95%. We don't have any updated drawings since the last time. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. So right now, for the circulation project, we have provided comments to the on the 95% plans to the designer. Unfortunately, it took me a lot longer than I thought it would to get my comments back to the designer. And I was hoping at this point we would be fairly close to having the final design. But right now, we do have our comments to the designer, and for that, they are looking at them. Unfortunately, when I sent my comments about 3 weeks ago, Verde, Derek McKee, who's the project manager for Verde, was on vacation, so he just got back last week. So I've been going back and forth with him, and he and I need to sit down and go through our comments, and hopefully I can get a revised schedule next week from him once he digests the comments that we provided to him, and we can talk about the comments that we have, because some of the things that we asked him to look at are the issues with making sure the park is, I've told them that the park is going to be open during the construction. So we want to make sure we deal with pedestrian traffic and vehicle traffic in the park. We want to make sure we look at that thoroughly so that the park is usable during construction. So anyway, so like I said, I'm hoping to get a schedule to share with you, to give to Sally next week, and then at that point she can provide that schedule to you guys.
Thanks, Rick. A question about when you say the schedule, would that include the time when this will be put out for bid?
Yes, yeah. So what I want to talk to Derek about would be when they can finish up the plans, and then yes, as part of that schedule, I will put in there when we can go out to bid, and then the estimated time for construction.
So to understand right, that when you've now resolved, when you do resolve your comments, you would then send that to the town council before it would go out to bid?
I believe that is the process. I'm not completely sure about the process of the town. I believe that's what Robert mentioned. Before we do go out to bid, I think we do go to council and get their approval before we advertise the project.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important to confirm with Robert. Have we seen the 95% plan?
I think it was presented to you a couple months ago.
Really?
Yeah,
You mean a plan with the actual layout and things like that?
Yes, we went over it. I think
At your
not-
at your last presentation?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I can send Sally copies of the 95s, and then she can send it to you folks if you don't have copies of it.
Yeah, I think
That'd be a
that'd
good
be
idea.
great.
I thought you had already reported that actually that keeping the park open issue had been spelled out. You were going to use the area where we had the temporary trailers, and that was going to be the staging area. So like before, when the trailers were there, that won't be available for parking. Is that not right?
That's what I had mentioned at the last meeting. Unfortunately, the 95% that they gave us, that Verde showed on the plans, that's not how they had it. They had a staging. They showed staging on the plans that we didn't think would work. So I need to work with the designer to make sure that we get the staging correct.
And then how do you envision the finale to all this? Would in fact, if the bids go out, how many days does that, I don't want to preempt your schedule, but just to give us an idea. Would construction, if you get bids that are accepted, would that construction then be, say, in 3 months from now, start?
If I'm speculating how many weeks it might take Verde to complete their design, let's say I would give them maybe 3 weeks to complete it. And so we're looking at maybe early November, and then we have to go to, like you mentioned, we have to go to council for approval of the project to go out to advertisement. And then usually advertisement will go out to bid for at least 3 weeks minimum. So that takes us, again, I'm not really sure about the council schedule, but again, advertisement would be about 3 weeks. And then once we open bids, then we can, we can award the, if we have good bids, we can award it. So I'm thinking a minimum of 3 months from today would be when we can start construction. It would be a minimum of 3 months.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
Well, I think how that's all gonna work in terms of the staging and managing the whole project while the park is open is really important, so. I mean, yes, it's important you deal with that with Verde, but you need to bring that back to the committee so the committee understands it.
And to the council so that we know exactly what the proposal is here for how they're going to do all this. At one point, people talked about closing an entrance and doing some other things, so it'd be a fairly major issue.
That hasn't been discussed at the council level.
No, I don't mean any place. I just mean kicking it around.
I think that needs to
Yeah, right.
definitely
No.
get there.
Okay, well, anyway, thank you. But we have been at 95%, 90 and 95% for many months here, so it would be great to finally get to the goal
Yeah,
line.
to the finish line.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments, either here or on Zoom? Okay, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thank
I
you.
mean, Rick, appreciate it.
Thank
Now
you.
we're on to Kevin.
So Kevin's not here. So I'll go over what we received from Brightview. So let me pull up the plan, the proposal. So this is the, myself and Robert walked the site with 2 people from Brightview to look at the event garden and see how it can be improved. So they sent us this proposal for the event garden. So part of it is to enhance the area. They're also going to look at the irrigation coverage, inspect and repair that. Then they give us the amount for planting and mulch, and then helping out with the drainage. So some things I wanted to point out about the proposal. So they included in that proposal the plant material from the original planting, but they reduced the ground cover by about half to try and save some costs. And they say that over time, the ground cover will still infill to cover the design spaces. They included drip irrigation improvements for 5 to 6 valves that operate in these areas. They're gonna correct the irrigation in the drip lines. They felt like those weren't efficient. And they think that that's gonna help with the existing trees. And then they added additional drainage to the center planters. But But they say that they won't fully know what to expect until they can break ground and see what they need to install for drainage. So they suggested replacing the oak trees with crepe myrtles, which I'm not a fan of. I think that will look weird with the other oak trees. And then I thought the plant material cost seemed high. So they're saying just to plant the plants, they're quoting us 22,598. So I was supposed to receive like a tentative draft drawing of what this would look like, but I haven't received that. But I would like to hear any feedback or comments about this proposal.
Sally, didn't we plant oak trees on your recommendation when the foundation undertook the project? Wasn't that?
Yeah, so the ones, the trees, the trees currently in the planter beds that were planted as this project are oak trees. So they're suggesting replacing there's been about 3 that have died. So they're suggesting replacing that with crepe myrtles, but I think it won't look balanced.
Do we know why those trees died? Was it the drainage issue?
We're thinking it's the drainage issue over there. It's this, there's a section over in the event garden that has poor drainage. So we don't want to just put in new plants unless we can fix the drainage and make sure the irrigation is the correct irrigation.
Sally, is there any way to get a breakout on this? You commented on the cost, and it seems to me that when you just look at it, it's hard to tell. I mean, in the planting and mulch, when I see a bunch of 1 gallon going in there, a few 2 gallons and only 4 trees, it seems to me astonishingly high cost, just kind of thumbing it out here, knowing what it costs to put in 24 box trees. Hard, if I recall, it's hard to get up to $1,000 on a 24 tree.
Right. So yeah, that's why I thought this was extremely high, even, but I would like to see the count of how many of each they're planting.
Well, we know how many each are planting.
Yeah.
The question is, can you get for each of those items a breakout of cost?
Yeah.
I mean, if you could ask them for that, that would be great. And then secondly, again, can we ask for an alternative that would have a 2 gallon or 5 gallon container for this? Because just slapping up a bunch of 1 gallon or putting in a bunch of 1 gallon plants and 4 trees hardly to me replicates what the foundation spent a huge amount of money on of our foundation money to do that. So, I mean, to me, that's fine. Maybe in our kids or grandkids will enjoy it, but it's kind of hard right now.
Yeah.
It seemed very high to me, having just done a garden. These are really high,
Yeah.
high numbers, and they're tiny plants. That's what
Oh, yeah.
struck me. They're really, really tiny. I couldn't figure out how you got to 22,500. That's a lot of money.
Sally, can you tell us what's an assorted pollinator plant?
So they're just saying, because they wanted to, one of their ideas was to bring butterflies to the garden. So it would be like a plant that has flowers that attracts,
I see.
you know.
My only comment on that is we need to be sure it doesn't attract bees. Because these are close. They're, I don't know how close they are, but they can sometimes do both, and bees can be a real problem. Because you don't.
We want to encourage bees, but not around people
Not
having.
too close.
Not around the event garden,
Right.
yeah.
But they can be a little more remote, but they tend to be, both of them tend to go together
Yeah.
a lot of times. Sometimes they're separate, but it's worth knowing.
Sally, is there any idea, do you have any idea whether the drainage issue can be resolved to where another oak tree can be planted? Is that possible? Or is there another species of oak that would survive the wetter conditions?
There probably is a different species of oak that could take a little more water. I mean, if they're not able to resolve the drainage issues, I mean, they're a landscape company. I mean, they should be able to figure out the drainage issue. So I think that another oak trees would be fine in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this crepe myrtle idea comes from.
That's,
The ones you've recommended before, Sally, which I think have been fine,
Yeah,
different types entirely, many of them oaks, a variety of oaks.
I noticed on the bid that they only total it up to drainage. Do they include that DG, it's a proposal for extra work? Is that DG included in that? It's not highlighted like the other ones are. Is that another idea or that's included in the price? It was just a little.
The gold?
ambiguous.
oh, I see, like at the bottom.
Yeah, because
I
it's
think that's part of the drainage.
I think that's because
drainage, okay.
it's for the French drain crossings.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be part of the drainage.
It'd probably be nice to break those two out,
Yeah,
just. It's nice to have broken out all of them.
On the drainage, they say additional drainage to connect the existing drainage in the two center planters. So does that mean, where does that mean they're gonna put that drainage in?
Yeah.
And the big problem in the drainage, right, was in that area of the event garden, sort of toward where the play school is,
correct.
yeah,
or not the play school, but the playground.
playground,
But
yes.
The structure, the art structure there that replaced the dead,
That's right.
the dead oak tree, because that was the worst area that we saw, remember? Walt?
That's right. That's right.
I will find out and I will make sure they're at the next meeting with a schematic of where the drainage is going and what the plants will look like. Because it's really hard to see them revamping this without some type of plans.
Well, yeah, and I think Walt's statement about, I mean, they certainly have the numbers about what each of these items cost. They've done the breakdown. They've come out with very exact total numbers, so that they should give you that detail.
Yeah, we should be buying wholesale, not retail,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
Well, one option, I mean, I'm assuming that the town could just buy the plants ourselves.
Yeah,
I can look into the cost of that and then see how that compares. If it's a lot cheaper for the town just to buy it myself,
It
then
might, yeah.
yeah.
well,
The only thing is the finger pointing if they don't grow. I mean, I think it's good to get that
Right.
information because that'll
Yeah.
give us a baseline. But I would tend to want the people who plant them to have to so-called guarantee them. Rather
And
than
they
saying
won't
it
if
was,
we
they won't. If we purchase them, they won't take on that
Yeah.
pseudo warranty,
good
whatever you want to call it.
what, Sally, what do you think of the plant material they're recommending other than the crepe myrtle?
I think it's fine. The sword ferns we already have in there.
Okay,
Emerald carpet, and the Aristophiles, those
yeah,
ground covers. We also already have the Iris Douglas in there. Callistemon, I'm not sure.
I don't know that plant.
Callistemon is like, has, red flowers that are kind of, long. You've probably seen it before. There's not a lot around here. Let me pull it up. You see the red flowers?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so and these are typically trees, but they're saying they would be shrubs, but I don't know if that fits into the event garden.
That looks like bottle brush.
That looks
Yeah,
a lot
so
of-
Callistemon is bottle brush.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh, how to care for bottle brush.
Yeah, so maybe I can look into something, another different shrub than the callistemon.
yeah, I don't think that's a great, that gets
Yeah.
both big and kind of wild. It's-
And it gets messy.
It's messy.
Yes, that's it.
Any other feedback? I do want them to come to the next meeting. And then we can get this project going.
Right,
I can probably ask it when they're here, but I would like the drainage thing addressed really carefully, because if you don't do it right, you might as well not do it at all.
That's the truth.
And it's really
Yeah.
difficult. I mean, they really have to outline, and they have to warranty it, it's like you're responsible.
Yeah.
If they're not 100% sure, they need to go back to the drawing board, because that's a tricky thing to do.
That makes sense. Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sally. Be looking forward to the rest, particularly to see if there aren't more trees I would be interested in,
Okay.
given what we lost already. Thank you.
So we do have Michael here for the next item for pickleball, and before we start the item, I did want to say that I have received a comment that the Park and Rec Committee should make a recommendation fairly soon on what the committee would like to do with pickleball.
Could I ask, who's we redid the committee. Who is the subcommittee? Who's the
Yeah.
head of that?
So Alex stepped down.
Right.
So right now it's Trish, myself and Juliana.
Right.
Juliana asked that I chair that subcommittee.
Okay.
And we just circulated the work that the previous subcommittee has formed. That was just sent out last week, or whenever, by Juliana. And so we need to get together, but I would like to have, as that comment said, I'd like to have a recommendation, hopefully in November, that we can present. But yeah, the progress since that last meeting has been limited.
So maybe if you could make a I'm just putting this out there. If you could make a recommendation at the November meeting, then I could possibly bring it to council in November.
When is?
Say that again?
When is the November council meeting?
It's the third Wednesday of the month.
Okay, so after, got it. Great.
Yeah.
Well, that should be our goal.
I don't think I'm just looking at my email. I did not, it may have gone to spam, but I did not get the pickleball information.
There wasn't a staff report for that one.
No, it was, Julie sent out something.
Oh, I was just sending previous notes and
Right.
the
previous
feedback
notes.
from the various conversations, summarizing all that and sending it to Trish and Noah so that they had all the previous work that was done. And so we've been kind of regrouping. And I think one of the last things we need to do is probably just have another conversation with Michael and see, what can we work out for a trial and what are the, before we submit a proposal, just to make sure that we're all, hopefully on the same page and wanting to see what we can try.
And that would have come under Juliana, it would have been your name, Juliana?
Noah's the chairman of the committee, and I distributed notes from Alex and Taylor and I, the discussions that we had with some of the stakeholders. So I was just forwarding those notes on to Noah and Trish since they're new to the committee. So that's what we're reviewing and trying to, put together a proposal.
Should I just ask you to send them to me once more? I don't know
Yeah.
what happened, but they somehow didn't arrive.
Okay,
But-
you could check, I'll send them on,
Okay,
but they were
terrific.
sent on
Thank you.
September 30th.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trish. I didn't understand what you
no
were saying.
problem.
Yeah.
Michael, do you have any additional comment while you're here?
No, not really. Not on the pickleball. I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, I think I think maybe if that's what everybody so-called wants, then I guess it's worth a try. I mean, from the tennis perspective, it's, it makes things a little bit more difficult, but if it's going to benefit the, residents of Atherton a lot, then, I mean, it's worth a try.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Sounds like next month would be a good time to look at this. No, if you could send this out, obviously, a few days before the meeting, that'd be great.
So
Thank you.
I think it's definitely something we need to
Wait,
get working
let-
on this.
Let me understand how, so wait, the subcommittee setup, is the subcommittee going to meet to discuss this? It sounds like Juliana sent some stuff around.
Yes.
The
So,
committee's
me-
been redone.
yeah, do you want me to,
Okay,
So,
so-
but the new committee, has the new committee met?
Not together yet.
No.
Okay,
So-
is the new committee going to do anything?
Yeah, so I
Yes.
think what we need to do is we need to get, Julie, Trish and I need to get together, review those materials that Alex and Taylor, I think, and Julie were, had worked on based on the conversations they had to date. And look and come up with what we think is
Yeah.
the right solution, and then bring that, circulate it to, I guess, the Parks and Rec Committee. Maybe we should shoot for like 5 days before the next meeting, and then come back and have that discussed at next meeting. Does that sound right?
And once, whether at that meeting or some other meeting, we would then
Yeah,
draft
yeah,
something.
no, I
for it.
understand, but you guys have to figure out.
We have
what
to find
your
time to meet.
recommendations gonna
Yeah,
be.
we can meet next bit of
Oh.
time.
And Sally, what's the urgency on getting this? to
yeah,
the
that's what I was
council?
going to ask. Thank you, Rick.
I am not sure what the urgency is, but the city manager wanted this to come to the council sooner than later. I'm not sure what the urgency is. I think they just maybe want to put, I'm assuming he wants council to have input before this goes further.
Well, it can't really go any further without them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming your recommendation's either gonna be do a trial and where that trial is
That's-
gonna be, or, yeah, so,
The proposal will be the details of the trial with an approximate cost estimate. And just to clarify, Noah and Trish just joined the last meeting, and due to schedules and Trish was traveling, we haven't been able to get together. So I distributed notes that we collected from previous conversations with Michael and some tennis players and some other folks. And so the next step is for us to get together, regroup, and then put the details together for a trial. And perhaps go over that in some way with the rest of the Parks and Rec Committee before it goes to the next step to council.
that'd be great, and if you could get something to me too, that would be great. Yeah, I did explain to the city manager that it's a new committee for pickleball, because we have 2 new members, so, yeah.
Great.
Any,
Yeah, and if we foresee any delays, just because this is, something I don't
Yeah.
think we anticipated, that somebody was anxious or eager to get it. If we anticipate any delays, we'll let everybody know.
yeah, just let me know and then I can relay that.
Yeah. I mean, the important thing, just to reiterate, is, Michael, if we want to try to do a trial, we certainly want it to be, a collaborative effort. And the whole point is to see if there truly is, the demand and the interest with the, residents of Atherton. And who knows, there may not be, but we want to make sure that we're working with you to do it, in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've just mentioned is that we've got to look at the sound issue and the closeness of Felton Gables. Because what we don't want to
Yes.
do is end up, going ahead and then getting a whole bunch of complaints.
Well, I think we'll have to evaluate if that's what happens during a trial. I don't think we can
Right.
foresee.
Right, no, I'm just saying that's,
people.
no, but there's also literature on what, I don't know that the distance is to them.
I think the other thing you might want to think about too is how do you mesh this with Michael's group,
Absolutely.
his commitment, and the people who paid the keys?
Yeah.
You have a little more difficult, we have a little more difficult issue there. And particularly if you will try to think about what hours you would do, if it's going to be a convertible, it's not going to be convertible, what hours do
Yep.
you want?
I think that's all
And I
gonna be.
That will
part
all
of
be part of the
I think
proposal.
get it, once you do that,
Yeah.
then we want Michael's input on how that fits, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think what, and right, we probably shouldn't delve into the details now, but I think we wouldn't be impacting Michael's court, his allocated courts with the trial. You know, permanent solution, who knows how it'll all happen. But the trial is here to assess, the town residents want this. And it's kind of hard sitting here, but we'd like to come up with a proposal that will have the different elements. And some of them that will probably be left open, like how do you charge for it or recover revenue or things like that. I don't think we need to nail all of those things for the trial, but we would need for any, you know, post-trial.
Well, maybe so, but I mean, that's a very definite decision. We're not going to charge anybody to get on there during the trial when the other people that you're preempting, the tennis players in theory, are paying.
Right.
Uh,
It's something we'll put
Okay.
on
Yeah.
the discussion.
But I'm just
board,
saying,
so-
those are elements I
Yeah.
think that would be
Okay.
helpful for us to,
Yep.
to look at and decide. Okay, Sally, I think
Okay.
we're
I
on to,
think-
we're
I
on to a
think-
new issue that I've not seen before.
Smoking.
Okay,
Smoking,
yeah,
right.
so this one, I get quite a few comments about smokers in the park. Per our ordinance, you're allowed to, it doesn't say you're allowed to, but per our town ordinance, smoking is allowed. There's nowhere that says smoking is not allowed in the park. And so usually when somebody comes to me with complaints about it, I sometimes add, like recently I added a couple more of those cigarette butt holders to the areas where they see people smoking. And so I just am bringing this to your attention because I feel like there's not much I can do to help people when they bring this to my attention. I just want to know if it's something that you want to even consider going down this road to maybe ban smoking in the park. I don't know. Except if you do that, there's some of the issues are, would you ban smoking for events? I know that there's a certain amount of feet away from buildings that you have to smoke. You have to be 25 feet away from a playground. That's the state law to smoke. But I've gotten about 3 or 4 complaints recently. And so I'm just seeing if there's anything that the committee has any suggestions or if you want to even pursue changing the ordinance.
Sally, when you say smoking at events, I assume you mean outside events, not inside.
Yeah, outside events. I just figure maybe with these larger groups, there's probably a few smokers out of every event, so.
So wait, is that accurate? Are there smokers at every event?
Cassidy?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely, especially with weddings and, you know, ones that go into the later evening when people have been drinking, I definitely see more smokers at those events. But I wouldn't say that it's a huge percentage of people, but there is definitely smokers there. We always, I mean, there's definitely been a couple weddings that we've, you know, had to sweep up cigarette butts and things like that after the event of, yeah.
So as of 2019, California's banned smoking at state parks. And I just saw that Palo Alto and Menlo Park have banned it, at least Palo Alto since 2013. Obviously, we could choose to do that. I don't think that's the Park and Recs that there'd have to be a town ordinance that would
Right.
say it, but
Park and Rec would be recommending something to the council.
okay, is that how?
Yeah.
Great.
Did you say every park in Menlo Park has banned it?
It, according to this, what I just saw, definitely Palo Alto banned it in 2013. This other thing, which was nosmoke.org, lists the parks in California or the towns that have banned it and has Palo Alto Menlo Park on that.
Belmont is banned throughout the town.
Belmont is on it. So it's not unheard of by any means. So I think do we have any, quantity to measure, or do we believe, we've heard some complaints, have people been seeing a lot of people smoking?
Well, let me ask first, Cassidy, did your people clean up the cigarette butts as part of that cleanup you mentioned?
You see it?
We have been, yes. I mean, it's not after every event, but there has been a few where, I mean, obviously we want to keep the park as clean as possible. So if we see it, we definitely take care of it.
The other comment is, it's one thing to say parks that are used during the day for recreation, which is what I regard as Menlo Park in Palo Alto. It's another to have social events, which thanks to Cassidy and others, we're recouping 60% of all the cost of this park, unlike, I think, probably every other town. So I would not want to do anything that would in any way hurt Cassidy's efforts. And I would rely on her unless we have a groundswell. It doesn't sound like the dog issue to me, but Sally, you can let us know.
Cassidy, the complaints you mentioned, were these complaints regarding what aspect of smoking?
So mostly they were regarding, people leaving cigarette butts on the ground. So I do have a couple of ladies that walk around the park picking up cigarette butts. They are two of the complainers, and they mentioned that they see a bunch of male smokers early in the morning in a shady corner of the park. And they think they leave all their cigarette butts, but I did place some of those canisters in the areas that they have mentioned. So I don't see this as a major issue. I mean, if people were smoking around other people or around children, but it just sounds like people are keeping to themselves and smoking. And I guess just cleanup of that kind of stuff is just a regular park maintenance thing.
I have two questions. One is for Sally. Which area of the park is that where she said the smokers?
So there's a park course near the tennis courts.
People getting exercise or smoking?
We planted a dogwood over there. It's closer to the area where we put the newer bench, the donated new bench. It's
So wait, the bench with the cover on it next to the tennis courts?
it's not there, but it's close to there.
Do we think not having smoking would have an effect on events?
That's my
just a
second
question, only
That's
because
exactly my second
definitely the trend is to not have smoking. I mean, they're now, even at the airport now, they're more enforcing it. People used to just, they say they just go outside and smoke, and now there's big things. You have to be this many feet away and everything else. I mean, I'm just wondering if the event thing is an issue.
Well, I just don't know how Cassidy would be able to enforce that, and I don't know how the town could enforce it.
Well, I think all you can do is put a sign that says no smoking and hope. I mean, you're not going to, there's you can't possibly have somebody there to monitor it. But if it's a no smoking park, that does tell people, you're going to have some offenders, but I think you cut down on a lot of offenders.
The question is, will we lose business
Absolutely.
by posting
that's what
no
I-
smoking signs?
Cassidy, has anybody said, if you ban smoking, if so, we won't rent?
Why would she ask?
I've never had any.
Anyone asked her that question?
I've never had anyone say anything regarding smoking. I mean, there has been a handful of times, like we had a wedding in the pavilion, I think it was a week or two ago, and there was a couple guests out there smoking. They were in the parking lot, they were away from the building, and they made sure to come in, and we had a garbage can right there, and they threw their cigarette butts in the garbage can. So they were very respectful of it. And I do think the majority of guests that are still smoking at events like this, they try to do it discreetly away from the buildings. I mean, I don't know if we would lose clientele by saying you can't smoke at the park. I don't think that, every wedding that we host, they're going to, advertise this is a no smoking park. I think that would make it kind of hard on the client as well as us. I mean, I can't go around and say no smoking when I'm trying to manage the event as well. So, I mean, we can do our best to cut down on that, but I don't know how that would translate.
We just actually gave 2 weddings this year for 2 of our children. So we looked at a lot of venues and they were no smoking by and large.
Oh,
Is that it?
Yeah, they said it, no smoking,
Outside, inside, whatever.
no smoking. Because I think people are used to, like the town of Belmont, zero. Can't do it anywhere. You can do it in your house. But, I think people are getting more used to it. This is not a cross I'm bearing, but I do think,
Yeah.
having looked at events and looked at so many of them, it's like, it's becoming much more normative to
Everywhere.
not smoke.
Circus Club, it's banned.
Yeah.
And obviously plenty of events
Yeah.
there.
It's much more,
But-
having it banned seems more common, but again,
Don't really.
Point, this looks like an action looking for a problem right now, to me. I really don't think we need to. I mean, I don't care either way, but it seems to me like it's something that is minimally.
Well, Sally, does the staff have a recommendation?
No,
Beautiful.
What?
I can check in with Robert and even discuss it with George and see how they would feel about it, banning smoking. But at this time, we don't have a recommendation.
How about the workers? Do the workers smoke? Occasionally you find that.
Rob doesn't. smoke.
I know
No, I mean
MC, yeah,
MCE.
MCE and Brightview, I have never
Brightview.
seen them smoking.
Sally, are we
Hopefully.
violating any state law by allowing or not ignoring or whatever you want to call it, smoking at the park?
I don't think so, no. And there's just state law that's 25 feet away from playgrounds and buildings.
That's it.
We should make it part of the Brightview contract to not have their workers smoke. It probably is, but I know, like, we just did an outdoor project and that's part of the contract with the contractors. No smoke. I kind of agree that maybe now we're at least aware of this issue and come back maybe 6 months and say, okay, do we think it's worth addressing? But now, like, let's see if the complaints increase or whatever, and see if the cleanup effort's a problem, and Cassidy's aware of it, can see, are people smoking, and then we just bring it back on the agenda in 6 months.
That sounds good.
I'll definitely keep an eye out at events and everything as well,
Okay.
to see what I can
Great,
do.
thank you.
Okay, so the last item is the updates on the prioritized park projects and goals. So we already went over pickleball. We sort of got an update on the circulation project. And then another one of the goals that you had was the Brightview evaluation and review. So I don't know if you want to talk about that one. Someone added that as a goal for the committee is the Brightview evaluation and review. Maybe that was something Alex added.
Well, I think that they ought to present to the committee.
Yeah.
Before that.
Okay. So you want me to invite them to the next meeting, or how do you want to handle that?
Well,
Somebody added this as a goal for the committee to work on, so I just want to know how you want me to proceed.
I think they ought to present as soon as possible, my view. I would ask that certainly if we could get those numbers first on the breakout, we could talk to Brightview about both subjects, i.e. what they're doing.
Okay, yeah.
I would be interested, Sally, in your comments. I see they're taking out 4 trees they put on there. Is that something you've approved, hopefully?
Yeah, that's something that I'm doing. There's,
Okay,
yeah, I posted those trees. We now post public trees for 30 days unless it's an emergency. And yeah, I haven't received actually any comments on those.
it doesn't look like at least one of them's in the event guard. Now, hopefully none of the others are.
Yeah, they're all around the outside of the park.
Well, except one of them is by a parked car, but anyway, okay.
That one's a small one, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I would say, I think this is helpful to have a report like this with actual
Yeah.
photos and describing what they've done and so on. Also
Okay.
useful to see if we're getting our money's worth from them.
Yeah. Okay. And then, you'll see. Hold on. Oh, so then, and now it's foundation report.
Okay, we had a meeting last week. We're talking about, well, let me back up a tiny bit. The, in the bride's room, the display cases, bookcases with the glass doors, the locks are being repaired and are going to be keyed unilaterally so that they all work correctly. The historical has asked us if they could use some of those display cases to put items in that would be secure, which is why we went ahead to do that. We should be done with that in another week or two, as soon as my brother gets off his ass. And then as far as we're looking at other projects to do possibly, we've talked about the fountain previously, and we're talking about some other things, and we haven't. We're going to wait till we see what the 95% drawings look like before we consider what else to do. And beyond that, we are going to send out a mailer to every town resident this fall with our new park brochure as soon as it's amended again, and the foundation brochure, which has to do with the park, and that'll go out in probably the middle of November.
I'd also add that if you look at the town center, you will see now 3 different places in the main room where we have a brochure that the foundation has drafted and paid for, which actually promotes the park way more than the foundation. But anyway, hopefully people coming in that have not been to the park, that are our residents or have some business there, will see that. Because after all, our common interest is to get people to use that park and enjoy what they have.
Great.
Okay, the next is park goings on. So as you could, I don't know if you've all seen it, but the 2 tennis courts, court 1 and 2 were finished last week. And then the clay court has also been revamped as of yesterday.
Great.
Yeah, we walked around it. They look great.
Yeah.
So we had talked about, there was last meeting that talked about we would have to pay to redo the clay court for some, or to update it. Was that part of, who did this work and was part of the budget?
So for the clay court, it's in the contract that we maintain it twice a year. So that typically means we spend maybe from $5,000 to $10,000 every time we maintain it on the clay court. And on the daily maintenance is supposed to be done by Player Capital. So, and then the tennis courts, the overlay projects, that is something the town does. And now that we've overlaid all 5 courts, it should be 10 years or so before we would have to do something like that again. We might need to do a resurfacing, but they're looking pretty good. They should last a long time.
Great.
They look great. The clay court, I don't think anyone expected to see the clay court looking good. It looked pretty good.
Much better than it did 6 months ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Much better.
So yeah, so there were some hanging branches this month in the park that got removed. As Walt mentioned, there's 4 trees that I posted for removal. The small one, the sycamore, has a fungal disease. The Monterey pine has bark beetles and it's starting to flag, which means part of it's dying. The cedar that's along the North Meadow end, it's just the very tip top is alive. I think it just never got enough sunlight. It's not really doing much if the tip top is only alive and all the branches are dead. And then as you saw, the courts got finalized. They just got finalized, so I wasn't able to update that. And then here's, in your packet, you should have the events for October. And then,
Pretty significant.
and then you should have all the financial reports.
We do.
Okay, so, if you have any questions, I think Walt had some questions on the financial report.
I'm sorry, to whom would we address those, Sally?
You can ask me if I can answer. If not, I will get back to you from finance.
Okay, thank you. So the question I have is again, and maybe this was answered when we had our presentation before, but I can't match the revenue numbers we have. For instance, what happened was this month of, I guess, September, although it's not labeled, but it looks like it financial report says we made $21,000 in revenue generally and 7,650 more from Cassidy. Then I look over at the report year to date, September, which of course is 3 months. I can't find that number. And I can't find the components. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. I do see a wedding number there of $22,000, but that doesn't quite fit. Maybe that's the,
No, but this,
General?
this is the sum, you're looking at this sheet.
right,
And so the, what you're looking at obviously in the September is 1 month. And here you're looking at 3 months.
no, I'm looking at actual here for 1 month. I'm looking over here for actual 1 month.
Wait,
Yeah,
wait,
I
wait,
think,
the actual is-
I think what they talked about.
Where's one, where's
There's
this?
actual, this is all
No,
actual.
But that's not 1 month. This is actual for 3 months, I think, isn't it? Or am I wrong?
Well, I don't know, it doesn't say.
So I think what he had talked about last meeting was this number, the 76, 50, 57, the 10% catering that, or the 10% that's paid to the town
Right,
comes in the following month.
Month.
Oh,
I think it's like 1 month delayed.
Oh,
So
so that's why you're,
so where's the 21,481, whatever that number is, something 41, 21.
841, I don't know if that ever shows up or if we just get the,
Well, I mean, something has
understand.
to
This is
show up.
not 1 month. This is 3 months. So what you've got here is you got the budget for last year, the
Mhm.
actual for last year,
Mhm.
the budget for this year, and the actual this year to date.
Well, for your 3 months.
Right, so it's
Right.
3 months, so you're, the number, so you're right, I mean, I understand what
Still.
you're struggling with. Because you look at the 1 month information, this is gonna be put into whatever it goes into.
Yeah, exactly. Is it
Whether it's
40?
social fees or weddings,
Right.
some of that's weddings, some of it's social fees. And
Yeah, so we can't
there's
track
no,
the one
there's
to
no way
one.
to track it, I have this frustration all the time.
No, didn't we ask, if you remember, or anybody?
Yeah.
Somebody asked, I think Alex,
Rick, didn't you ask to get that corrected? Like,
to have a different number. I
Yeah.
think it was to put 2019 in there or something.
yeah, didn't we? do
So we
that?
could
Right.
look at.
Yes, we did request that, but it hasn't happened, so I will re-request it.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, if you wanted to address what Walt is raising, which I think is a fair question,
Yeah.
in what is actual, you'd have 2 columns. One would be the most recent month, and the other would be fiscal year to date. And right now, they're just giving us fiscal year to date, so you can't really track it in terms of the monthly information.
That makes sense, yes.
I agree.
I will send that over to Robert. I will edit this and show that what we want.
Oh, sure.
So hopefully they can just easily do that, but they didn't do it. We did request it. Any other questions?
I don't, this is the right time to bring this up, Sally. Walt had a point when we were doing our walk around, and I agree completely. That police tape that's around the large oak tree out there just off the entrance to the to the, at the start of the lawn as you're coming into the park. What's the status with that tree, and or is there some other way we can put a permanent fence up there so it doesn't look like it happened yesterday?
And I'm Rachel 12.
I think the next, I thought the idea the committee wanted was a metal fence. After we looked at wood fence options.
Okay,
So it's just something that I need to do.
but is that tree is perilous as it stands now? I mean, is there concern that that tree is gonna fall over? Is that what we're doing that for?
We did find some decay at the base, and so, we don't know exactly how much decay there is. And so because it slightly leans over to the side, we wouldn't want it to fall over.
Yeah.
And so it's not something that you can slow decay in an oak tree, but you can never really stop it, so. Because it's such a large tree and we probably don't want to remove it.
Yeah.
What was recommended to us by our tree company, West Coast Arborist, was to fence it off.
Okay, we were just wondering, it's been a
I know,
year?
it's
I don't
it's
know.
been a long time.
Yeah, and I don't know that metal's required. We did talk about that, Sally, as matching what's around the playground. That
Yeah,
would be great, but even if it's wooden, I mean, something other than, remember what we looked at before, which was very practical, but didn't look very good. So if you can figure that out, it's nice not to have our park look like it's a zone where they must have had some terrible crime or something.
that makes sense, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I guess the thing is individual committee member comments.
One comment I would make, Sally, is if you could think about this, walking around with other people, they remarked about how helpful it is to have the trees labeled. If we could do more of that, that would be very helpful, because this is educational. The tree people have a nice plaque up there, that shows where some of the trees are, but to actually label them would be very nice.
Okay,
We had that QR system, but it didn't work well.
yeah, we're
Well,
not doing that.
Not only
anymore.
that, I mean, there's just nothing on a lot of trees.
Yeah,
I don't know how to spell QR. I've never used it.
Yeah.
any other comments?
None.
Okay, so November 2nd is our next meeting. Same sort of format as this one. And thank you, Sally, for getting this so well organized, and for the people who actually presented. That's very helpful.
Yeah, and can we get a motion to end the meeting?
Wait, I have one question on
Okay.
the meetings you're gonna maintain as a hybrid Zoom, or we can be here kind of thing?
As far as I know, they're gonna be hybrid. So the next meeting on the 2nd will be in person and hybrid, and I should be able to attend that meeting in person.
So I'm gonna be in the hill country of Texas, probably.
Okay.
The first ask of a friend of mine's whiskey production, so
Ah.
I should be okay.
Jeez.
I wanted to let you know that I definitely won't be at the next
Okay.
meeting.
I'm sorry.
Say it again.
Motion to,
Motion
Oh,
to.
go ahead.
Second.
Don't move. Rowan.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.